There are moments in human history where time feels incomplete. Entire centuries pass with little explanation, leaving behind only fragments, broken records, and unanswered questions. This is what historians call the lost epochs, periods where civilizations vanished, knowledge faded, and stories were swallowed by silence. No clear endings, no clear beginnings. We find ruins without names, technologies without origins, and myths that feel uncomfortably close to truth. Did knowledge disappear with the fall of empires? Were entire cultures erased by disasters, wars, or time itself? Or are these gaps simply reminders of how fragile memory truly is? Tonight we will drift through these forgotten ages not to solve them, but to gently explore the mystery they left behind. Let the unanswered questions slow your thoughts. Let the silence of history guide you toward rest. This is the lost epoch. Throughout human history, entire civilizations have risen to remarkable heights only to disappear almost completely, leaving behind little more than silent ruins and unanswered questions. These forgotten civilizations challenge our understanding of the past, reminding us that history is not a complete record, but a fragile collection of memories shaped by survival, chance, and time. Across the world, archaeologists uncover cities with no written language, monuments with no known builders, and artifacts that do not fully align with the cultures we believe occupied those regions. Stone structures stand in deserts, jungles, and mountains, enduring thousands of years, while the people who created them fade into obscurity. Their names are lost, their voices erased, and their stories left untold. One of the most haunting aspects of forgotten civilizations is how advanced some of them appear to have been. Massive stone blocks were moved with precision that still puzzles modern engineers. Sophisticated drainage systems, urban planning, and astronomical alignments suggest a deep understanding of science and nature. In many cases, there are no surviving records to explain how these societies functioned or why their knowledge disappeared. What remains are questions carved into stone. The disappearance of these civilizations was rarely the result of a single cause. Climate change altered landscapes, turning fertile land into deserts or flooding coastal settlements. Natural disasters such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and prolonged droughts could erase generations within moments. Wars and invasions destroyed cities, while disease silently weakened populations. In other cases, societies slowly declined as trade routes collapsed or resources were exhausted, leaving people to migrate and abandon their cities. Time itself plays a role in erasing civilizations. Organic materials decay, languages vanish, and oral traditions are lost when communities disperse. Without continuous preservation, history dissolves into fragments. What we often call a prehistoric is not an absence of civilization, but an absence of surviving evidence. Countless societies may have existed beyond our current understanding, hidden beneath layers of earth and time. Forgotten civilizations also remind us of the limitations of historical narratives. Much of recorded history focuses on dominant empires, those with writing systems, power, and influence. Smaller or less centralized societies were often ignored, conquered, or absorbed, leaving behind no official record of their existence. Their contributions may survive only in myths, legends, or unexplained ruins. There is something deeply human about these lost societies. They built homes, worshipped the sky, told stories, raised children, and dreamed of the future, just as we do today. Yet their entire existence now rests on broken stones, scattered artifacts. This realization invites humility. If powerful civilizations of the past could vanish so completely, it challenges the assumption that modern society is immune to the same fate. In the quiet presence of ancient ruins, forgotten civilizations whisper a timeless lesson. Progress is not permanent. Knowledge is not guaranteed to survive. And history, no matter how carefully recorded, will always contain gaps. These lost societies do not simply belong to the past, they serve as gentle reminders of how easily human achievement can fade, leaving behind only mystery, silence, and wonder. History often feels like a continuous story, one event leading naturally to the next. But when we look closer, that sense of continuity begins to fade. Between well-documented eras lie long stretches of time where records are missing, incomplete, or unreliable. These gaps in the historical record are some of the most intriguing and unsettling aspects of human history, revealing how much of our past has been lost to silence. Historical gap does not mean that nothing happened during that time. Rather, it means that what did happen was never recorded, was destroyed, or failed to survive long enough to reach us. Many ancient societies relied on oral traditions instead of written language. Their histories were passed through storytelling, ritual, and memory systems that could last generations, but were vulnerable to collapse if communities were disrupted. When these traditions broke, entire chapters of human experience disappeared with them. Even written records are fragile. Ancient texts were often carved into stone, written on clay tablets, or recorded on papyrus and parchment materials, easily damaged by fire, moisture, war, and time. Libraries burned. Cities fell. Archives were deliberately destroyed to erase cultures, beliefs, or political rivals. When this happened, centuries of knowledge vanished almost instantly, leaving historians to reconstruct the past from fragments and shadows. One of the most debated examples of historical gaps is the so-called Dark Ages, particularly in Europe after the fall of Western Roman Empire. During this period, centralized administration collapsed, literacy declined, and record-keeping became inconsistent. While life certainly continued, fewer written sources survived, creating the illusion of stagnation. Similar gaps appear in many regions of the world, often coinciding with political instability, climate shifts, or societal collapse. Bias also plays a powerful role in shaping historical gaps. Most surviving records were created by elite kings, priests, scholars, and conquerors. The lives of common people, women, laborers, and marginalized groups were rarely documented in detail. As a result, vast portions of human experience are missing from official history. What we know is often the story of power, not the story of everyday life. Translation and interpretation further complicate historical records. Languages evolve, meanings shift, and symbols lose context over time. Some texts remain undeciphered, while others may have been misunderstood for centuries. Even when records exist, their true meaning can be distorted or debated, creating uncertainty rather than clarity. Natural forces also contribute to these gaps. Floods bury cities, shifting sands hide settlements, and jungles reclaim once thriving civilizations. Entire landscapes can change, concealing evidence beneath layers of earth. What we consider a loss to history may simply be history waiting to be uncovered. These gaps remind us that history is not an objective truth carved in stone. It is a reconstruction, an ongoing attempt to understand the past using incomplete evidence. Archaeology, technology, and modern research continue to fill in some of these blanks, but many questions remain unanswered. In a quiet way, gaps in the historical record invite reflection rather than certainty. They teach us humility, patience, and curiosity. The unknown spaces between known events are not failures of history, but echoes of its fragility. In those silent centuries, humanity lived, struggled, and dreamed just beyond the reach of memory, resting in the shadows of time. Throughout history, humanity has discovered, refined, and mastered forms of knowledge that later disappeared, sometimes completely. These losses remind us that progress is not a straight line moving endlessly forward, but a fragile cycle shaped by survival, memory, and preservation. Lost knowledge and forgotten technologies stand as quiet evidence that what we know today is only a fraction of what once existed. Ancient civilizations developed skills that still challenge modern understanding. Massive stone monuments were constructed with astonishing precision, often without the use of iron tools, advanced machinery, or written blueprints. The exact methods used to transport and shape enormous stones remain uncertain. While theories exist, no single explanation fully recreates the efficiency and accuracy achieved by ancient builders. Their techniques were likely passed down through practice and apprenticeship, rather than written instruction, making them especially vulnerable to loss. Beyond architecture, ancient societies possessed sophisticated knowledge of astronomy, medicine, and engineering. They tracked celestial movements with remarkable accuracy, aligning temples and monuments with solstices, equinoxes, and star patterns. Medical texts from ancient cultures reveal surgical procedures, herbal remedies, and anatomical understanding far ahead of their time. Some of this knowledge survived in fragments, while much of it vanished as civilizations declined or were absorbed by others. One reason knowledge disappears is its dependence on continuity. When societies collapse due to war, climate change, or economic failure, the systems that preserve knowledge collapse with them. Libraries are destroyed, scholars are displaced, and skilled practitioners die without passing on their expertise. Without written records or stable institutions, even the most advanced knowledge can vanish within a few generations. Another factor is cultural transformation. When new belief systems replace older ones, previous knowledge may be dismissed, suppressed, or deliberately erased. Technologies associated with former religions, rulers, or philosophies are sometimes rejected, regardless of their practical value. Over time, what was once essential becomes forbidden or forgotten, surviving only as myth or rumor. Lost knowledge is not always completely gone. It often exists in fragments, misunderstood or misattributed. Ancient texts may survive but lack context. Tools may be discovered without instructions. Symbols may remain undeciphered. Without understanding the framework in which knowledge was used, reconstruction becomes nearly impossible. What remains feels incomplete, like reading a single page from a missing book. These losses challenge modern assumptions about superiority and permanence. Despite today's advanced technology, we remain dependent on fragile systems, digital storage, electrical grids, and complex supply chains. If disrupted, vast amounts of modern knowledge could become inaccessible. In this sense, ancient losses feel less distant and more like warnings. Yet there is also something peaceful in the idea of lost knowledge. It suggests that humanity has always been experimenting, learning, and rediscovering itself. Knowledge fades, but curiosity endures. Each generation rebuilds understanding from what survives, adding new layers to an ever-evolving story. Lost knowledge and technologies are not simply failures of the past. They are reminders of impermanence, resilience, and humility. They invite us to value preservation, respect ancient wisdom, and accept that mystery will always be part of the human journey, quietly resting in the spaces between what we remember and what has been forgotten. Human nature longs for certainty. We search for clear explanations, precise timelines, and definitive truths about the past. Yet history often resists this desire. Many of its most fascinating aspects remain unresolved, steeped in ambiguity and silence. Choosing mystery over answers does not mean abandoning truth. It means accepting that some questions may never be fully solved, and that their uncertainty holds value of its own. Throughout human history, there are moments where evidence simply runs out. Artifacts exist without context, ruins stand without names, and events are hinted at but never clearly described. In these spaces, historians can propose theories, but cannot reach absolute conclusions. The temptation to fill these gaps with confident answers is strong, yet doing so can distort the past rather than honor it. Mystery, when respected, protects history from false certainty. Many ancient cultures themselves embraced mystery. Knowledge was often symbolic, encoded in myth, ritual, and metaphor rather than direct explanation. Stories were not always meant to be literal records, but reflections of meaning, morality, and cosmic order. Mystery was not ignorance. It was a way of understanding the world beyond measurable facts. In historical research, mystery serves an important role. It encourages humility. When scholars admit uncertainty, they acknowledge the limits of evidence and interpretation. This openness allows history to remain flexible, adapting as new discoveries emerge. Some of the most significant breakthroughs in archaeology occurred because researchers were willing to question long-held assumptions rather than cling to comfortable explanations. Mystery also invites imagination and reflection. Unanswered questions slow us down, encouraging contemplation rather than consumption. Instead of racing toward conclusions, we linger in possibility. This is especially meaningful when exploring deep history, where the emotional and human dimensions matter as much as dates and facts. Wonder becomes a bridge between the present and the distant past. There is also quiet comfort in unresolved history. Not everything must be explained to be meaningful. The unknown allows space for awe, much like the night sky or the deep ocean. In a world driven by data and immediacy, mystery offers rest. It reminds us that understanding is not ownership, and that some truths exist beyond language. Modern culture often treats mystery as a problem to be solved, rather than an experience to be felt. But history suggests otherwise. Many civilizations lived alongside uncertainty, interpreting the unknown as sacred rather than threatening.